And welcome back. Something we wanted to talk about this morning that I haven't really thought a lot about until the issue came to my attention. And then I thought, yeah, this is something that has to be considered. We're talking about police officer recruitment for the Sault Ste. Marie Police Services and what the situation is now and what they're anticipating for the future and how they're going to work on making sure that we are always safe, because that's what they do best. Joining us is Tina Caruso, Human Resources Supervisor with the Police Services, and somebody we know really well, Jane Martinuck, retired Staff Sergeant. What? Retired? I don't think you asked.
Yeah, I kind of snuck out the door at the end of January there. So,
and now you're a part-time interviewer and background investigator. So first of all, are you like the first person that someone who is thinking about becoming an officer in Sault Ste. Marie, are you the first person they talk to?
Well, really, Tina and Cindy, who is our HR support clerk person, are really the first contact persons if somebody has an inquiry. And depending on what their questions are, Tina or Cindy would refer them to myself. And we have two other retired officers who are also recruiters. And so, yeah, it's kind of a really nice team that we have in the Human Resources section. So the initial would go into Tina and Cindy. And if there's more follow-up questions, or if they want to have a little bit of what do you need to know about entering into policing, then one of us would contact the applicant.
Right. So Tina, because you're the supervisor, give us like an overview of the status of police officers and how many we have, and do we need any right now, and when we will need them.
Right. So definitely we're anticipating that there's going to be a lot of retirements in the next 3 years. We currently had 10 retire this year, including retired Staff Sergeant Jane, who is now our background investigator, which we're happy to have. So currently we are authorized at 135. We're definitely probably recruiting 5 or 6 to get us to the end of the year. And then anticipating probably another 10 to 15 in the next 3 years.
Now tell me about the nerves part of this job, because you said 10 retirements and I went, yes. So you I'm sure sort of have reason to anticipate a number, but do you ever get caught off guard with 2 or 3 people going, oh, by the way, did I tell you I'm leaving?
Absolutely. So we do actually have officers that can retire at any time. They can provide their notice of retirement at any time. So those do come up, absolutely. So that's one of the things we're trying to push so hard to get a pool going, to be ready for this. We're always trying to be ready for this, right? So that's definitely what we're working on right now.
I can picture you following people around who could retire. So what are you doing?
Yeah.
So what are you doing?
Absolutely.
So what are you doing?
Absolutely.
How long does the recruitment process take? For instance, let's start with someone who just graduated, has no experience, comes to the police services, and what's the process like? How long will that person be interviewed, and how long will it take to get into the ranks?
So with a new recruit constable, they definitely need to do a lot of things before they apply to us. They actually have to get their ATS testing. It's called Applicant Testing Services, and they have to complete that before even applying for us. And that usually happens, they need to go into test. They only come to the Sioux once a year. So they need to travel out of town. Sometimes it's London, Toronto. They need to be successful in that process first. That also includes a prep test, it's called. It's a physical testing. There's communication testing. There's a math test, vision test, hearing test. All that needs to be completed first. That needs to be attached to their application. Once they apply to us, we have their application, then they come in for a competency interview. That could take about a 3-hour, it's about a 3-hour interview.
Wow.
It's about 3 hours.
So this is way more involved than I thought.
Yes. So once that interview, you're either successful or unsuccessful in that interview. If you are successful, you would move into the background stage.
So that particular, that interviews, what are you looking for? What are the questions? What's the topic there?
Jane's one of our interviews.
what we do, it's called competency-based interviewing, and what we're looking for is an applicant who has some life experience, because when you go into policing, it's a very unique, very different field. We
right.
want people that are able to react appropriately in situations. We look for that maturity level. So a lot of the services across the province have gone into competency-based interviewing, and it's just, scenario. We look for what have you done in your life and how did you handle a certain situation. So that's the competency-based interview, and like I said, they can take up to 3 hours.
That sounds nerve-wracking, doesn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And certainly we will do some prepping with that. There's a lot of information if somebody is interested in looking at policing and is brand new into it. We highly recommend they start looking up competency-based interviews. There's a lot of information about them on YouTube, and also a lot of police services will have it. And there's sample testing that you can do for it as well.
Oh, that's awesome. So do you, as a retired police officer, feel like you can anticipate what they might be concerned about or what the questions are going to be from them?
Often, yes, but it depends on what their background is. Again, if they're very young, a lot of what we'll tell them is there's certain things that you need to look at doing. And again, if you're 21, 22 years old, that's not that common for somebody to get hired that young onto a police service almost anywhere, because we're looking again for some life experiences. We're looking for some maturity. And we're also looking for people that will have done some volunteer work. Volunteer is key, and it doesn't always have to be in a related field, but we do look for people that are involved in the community, that are giving back into the community, and that's one of the common things that we find when we're doing our interviews is, why do you want to be a police officer?
Right.
I want to help people. So the volunteering also, again, gives them situations that they may be able to speak about in their interviewing, and again, with their education and as life skills, being able to cope with what you're heading into for a very unique career.
It's such an interesting point because, I hadn't thought of it that way. If somebody right out of high school, goes through the training and the schooling and goes to Aylmer and becomes a police officer, what's a good job for them to look to get that life experience? Do you know what I mean?
Really, I think we've hired from all sorts of different.
Is that right?
We have hired off. Some of our officers have been security officers, because then you're learning some of your powers of arrest as a civilian. So as a citizen's power of arrest. So it gives you that little bit of knowledge and how to do reports
and diffusing situations.
Right. We have a number of officers who have worked.
Teachers.
We have officers who have worked as attendants in mental health wings as well. And again, just really, if a job probably brings you in contact with dealing with people. We deal with so many people. A lot of policing is customer service as well, but it's being able to interact and communicate well with people.
It's interesting because I just thought people who want to become police officers just go to school for that, graduate, but there's so much more involved. You have to look at the well-rounded person.
Yeah, and I think a lot of our applicants had policing as a goal, but again, also had a secondary employment lined up in the event they weren't successful. And I think that's really key, and again, shows that maturity. This is what I really want to do, but maybe right now is not the right time for me. I have a backup plan. But I have a backup plan.
Right, right. Tina, we're talking about, sort of the new officer, but also it's really important to get numbers up with regards to having experienced officers look at Sault Ste. Marie as their next position.
Yeah. So the good news is that we actually changed our policy within the last 3 or 4 months, where in the past, when we were hiring experienced officers coming back to Sault Ste. Marie, we were starting them down at a 4th class constable. We were compensating them at that level. We currently, with the new chief, we decided that they were going to be compensated based on the years of experience at the police service that they were at prior. So that's currently going on. We want to get the word out. We'd love to have some of these police officers with us come home back to their hometown.
Yeah. Sure. And you know what? It's interesting because it only helps to make Sault Ste. Marie Police Services more competitive if you're offering based on experience, because everybody does that.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
awesome.
And
What a great idea.
There is some value, again, to having an experienced officer come back to our service. When we hire somebody brand new, they have to attend the Ontario Police College for 9 weeks, and then they also are with the coach officer for usually 3 months. Whereas if we have an experienced officer, they've graduated from the police college, they've gone through all the applications, they're a successful candidate with another service. So within our organization, 2 weeks of them being with some in-service training, going over our policies, transitioning to firearms if the firearm is a little bit different, and then a week with an officer out on the road to kind of get familiar with our procedure. So in that time frame, you have a very quick turnaround, and getting an officer able to full functioning officer out on the road right away. So, and that's a huge benefit for us as well.
You know what, I have to say, it's very reassuring that there are so many steps involved in hiring police officers, because I think they're such an integral part of the community, and the Sioux Police Service especially does such a good job at being in the community. With regards to somebody, whether they're brand new, whether they're thinking about becoming a police officer, whether they're, a veteran police officer with some experience, do you do job postings? How does that work?
Yes. So on our website, we keep we have all the information on there. We keep the competition open at all times. So definitely, we have the application form. We have all the information on there for them to review and to look at, and they can call us at any time, send us emails if they have any specific questions. So it's not something that we just have, maybe we post it, for 2 or 3 weeks. We always have it open, and we keep a pool. We keep a pool of applicants and a pool ready to go, so then we can just pull from that pool whenever.
And I imagine that's really of benefit, because the process is extensive. You talked about the 9 weeks, and then the training and the competency and all that other stuff. So it's I imagine, to everyone's benefit to be in the pool. If somebody, just before we go, Jane, if you interview somebody and you say this is a great candidate, do you need to make a commitment to them prior to sending them to the 9 weeks training? Like, how does that work?
It's a whole process, and like I said, we have an interview that's done. If they are successful with the interview, then we have a background investigation done.
Okay.
If they're successful with the background investigation, then we look at a psychological investigation or a psychological examination. We have a medical that they have to complete. And I'm missing something else in there. I know, Tina, the medical.
The medical with the hearing and
the medical and hearing.
And so they're aware of that as that is part of the process.
Exactly.
And so are they expecting a commitment from you as they begin this process? You know what I mean? Like, are they saying, okay, well, they want me to do this and this and this, I'm in?
I probably will let you kind of address that a little bit more.
So with what Jane was explaining, really it's the background investigation. So once we put them into the background investigation, there's a multiple steps that needs to be completed, which Jane completes for us. It's all in one package. So when we start doing the background investigation, we're looking at past reference, we're looking at references, we're looking at character references, we're looking at school references. They also do neighborhood visits or neighbor visits, right, to see if this person fits the character to work for the police service.
That's so reassuring.
And a part of that includes also the psychological assessment along with the other medical assessments. We put that all together, and that's where a determination is made if this candidate is suitable to work with the Sault Ste. Marie Police Service.
That's so awesome. I think you guys are doing a great job. Best of luck. I hope you get a pool that's overflowing.
Thank you.
Good to see both of you.
Nice
Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for coming in.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. We'll be back right after this. Awesome.